This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This podcast contains adult themes and language, and some of the things that we discuss may be disturbing to some listeners. In this podcast, we discuss sexual assault, torture, race, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care of yourself.
And welcome to Fruit Loops. Buiti binafi and bienvenidos, bitches. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Fruit Loops is a podcast about true crimes committed by people of color and those who are othered and the victims, because there are, believe it or not, systems, institutions, and patterns in society that gatekeep this information. But we're going to give it to you straight, no chaser. The truth is, we're all capable of doing very shitty stuff.
Yep.
And all victims deserve to have their stories told. These crimes rarely get any public attention because, in the simplest of terms, the news is racist. Allegedly.
And we are Wendy and Beth. She's Wendy, a Black Latinx woman, and I'm Beth, and I just happen to be white.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's just a little piece of who we are.
Oh, yes.
But who we are not is journalists, investigators, or psychologists. We're just a couple of gals interested in true crime. Also, the opinions expressed in this podcast are just that, our opinions.
All right, so who are we talking about today, friend?
Well, this is our episode 234 about Wanda Jean Allen, a Black woman who murdered two women 7 years apart. And despite multiple issues with her trial, she was sentenced to death. Also, I wanted to say that we got a lot of great suggestions while we were on break for episodes to do.
Mm-hmm.
That helps us bring cases you guys want to learn about. So keep them coming. Send us emails.
Yeah, yes, please do. But before we get into the details of the case, Beth, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I had a good break, a much needed break
Mm-hmm,
for my mental health.
Yes, absolutely.
Went to the beach with my daughter and grandson. Had a great time. It was wonderful.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I actually saw pictures of you guys. Kind of look like you had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was good. We went boogie boarding. Yeah, it was super fun.
That's awesome. Oh, and the memories that you'll have
Oh,
forever.
yeah. The memories are the most important.
Yes,
Yes.
of course. Oh, I love that.
So how you doing?
I am doing actually really well. Mental health update, doing good.
Awesome.
Sleeping. I haven't cried in a while. I mean,
Nice.
I'm telling you, it's great over here.
Yeah.
And I just feel good. So I'm grateful for
Excellent.
that. This is my favorite time of year, Juneteenth, my birthday. It's Pride. It's Caribbean Heritage Month. It's National Safety Month for us true crime lovers out there. And Happy Black Music Month to everybody listening. So,
yeah, and happy belated birthday to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I had a birthday. I am now 40 years old.
Wow. You're still really young.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Nobody in this house thinks so, but I
You
appreciate
are.
it.
Now, old Whitey is another story.
yeah. I've been looking out at the grass like, is anybody on it? I want to be an old cantankerous white man when I grow up. Get off my lawn. Well, good. We hope you listening are doing very well as well. And we are very grateful that you're listening. Now we're going to get into some listener letters.
Yeah. Well, hello, angels. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot again. What's in the bag, Beth?
Well, I wanted to say thank you to Black Vulcan 69 for your 5-star review.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Actually, I read it today before we got on the mic, and it was really, really
beautiful.
Lovely. We appreciate the reviews. Don't seem like much, but they really help us.
They do.
Because of the topics that we discuss. People don't like hearing about race or racism or sexism or poverty or oppression or anything like that.
Yeah.
I guess some people might say it's too woke.
Yeah.
And it bothers people. And so those people let their opinions be known. And sometimes they seem like they're louder than the nice ones. And so we just want you to know we see it. We
really
appreciate
appreciate those reviews for sure. Yeah. And we read them and sometimes they make our day, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
like
you're
having
telling
a really shitty day, read a good review. I'm like, everything's all right with the world.
Yeah. No, we're doing the thing, you know? Like,
yes.
That's what it feels like. I'm being a regular person today, and I didn't suck at it. Yay.
So you have this little thing in here for me to read. So
I do.
I'm going to read it.
Okay. I'm waiting. I've been waiting for a month. I wrote this a month ago.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Shout out to the Patreons who got in on our welcome survey. And the Black Panthers were started in the Biggity O, a.k.a. Oakland.
Yay! You did it, Beth! I was worried.
And that's because we've been posting some Black Card revoked things with questions about where this particular one was where the Black Panthers started.
Good
and it was
one.
Oakland. Yeah.
Beth, the edition of the Black Card Revoke game I have here in my hands is old. It's like 3 years old. Did you get a new version?
Yes, I bought one that's Black History.
Oh!
In particular. Yeah.
Oh, I love it!
Yeah, maybe I'll get some more.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do the Black History because
I'm so glad you did. Yeah. I loved seeing people participate in the Patreon feed. And again, the community over there we have is so beautiful and wonderful. We love you guys so much. So thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. And if you have any questions or comments, please send them to fruitloopspod@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at
602-935-6294.
And we may feature it on a future episode. But if you don't want us to, just let us know and we won't.
Also, shout out to our fruité, Lindsay from Canada. And we wanted to say felicidades because Lindsay's got a new fruity in the family. The bun is done cooking in the oven.
Little baby fruity.
Yes. And so we just want to say felicidades to the family, y'all. We got a new frutitita preciosa in our crew. And so we are so happy for you, Lindsay. And thank you for reaching out. And Lindsay's got a shout out for us. So I'll be sure to convey that at that portion of the show. Yeah.
Right on.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break and then we're going to get into the story when we come back.
From DNA testing to the Dixie Mafia, Crime Capsule brings you new stories of true crime in American history. I'm your host, Benjamin Morris. Join us for exclusive interviews with authors from Arcadia Publishing, writing the hottest books on the most chilling stories of our country's past. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts or on evergreenpodcasts.com. Crime Capsule. History so interesting, it's criminal.
The truth about the Haditha massacre has been covered up, but not anymore.
I know you know what happened.
They went into houses and killed women and children.
What are you thinking?
What a mess.
U.S. Marines murdered innocent civilians in cold blood.
And at the center of it all
is 25-year-old Sergeant Frank Wuderick.
and me. Murder in House 2, a new podcast from Crowd Network.
All right, we're back.
All right.
Remind us, Beth, who is our subject today?
Our subject today is Wanda Jean Allen, a Black woman who murdered 2 women 7 years apart. She was sentenced to death and executed, despite multiple issues with her trial and her mental status.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
First, we want to say love and light, though, to the victims. Deirdre Pettis, who was 21 years old, and Gloria Jean Leathers, who was 29. Their lives were cut short, and we just want to say love and light to their loved ones and communities and anyone left in the wake of this tragic crime. And let's get into the setting now, because context matters.
Yeah.
What do you got, Beth?
So the setting is Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. It's the capital of Oklahoma and is centrally located within the state. Before European invasion, many Native American tribes already called the land that is now Oklahoma home. They included the Apache, Arapaho, Caddo, Comanche, Kiowa, Osage, and Wichita.
On May 28th, 1830, the Indian Removal Act was signed into law by President Andrew Buttface Jackson. This act required that various Native American tribes living in today's southeastern United States give up their native homelands in exchange for lands in what was then called Indian Territory, quote unquote. And it was located west of the Mississippi River and included present-day Oklahoma.
This meant that Native American tribes who were living in their native homelands in the southeastern United States were forcibly removed and sent to live in areas they had never lived before, and which were already being occupied by other Native American tribes.
Yeah, it just seems like I don't go here.
It's like telling, you know what, you need to leave and go live in Mexico. What?
Yeah. If you put yourself in that position, if you try to imagine, it's unimaginable. Like what? No. So a few tribes went peacefully, but most resisted the relocation policy. And during the fall and winter of 1838 and 9, in what became known as the Trail of Tears, the Cherokees were forcibly moved west by the U.S. government. Approximately 4,000 Cherokee people died on this forced march, and millions of acres of indigenous land were stolen. Other tribes that were moved included the Choctaw, Seminoles, Creek, and Chickasaw.
Oklahoma City's history began in 1889 when President Benjamin Harrison opened the unassigned lands to settlement in an event known as the Land Run. The unassigned lands were almost 2 million acres of land in Indian Territory in the 1880s that were not assigned to an Indian tribe.
This is where the word Sooner comes from, I think. Oklahoma
yes,
Sooners?
It does.
Yeah. So here we go. The Land Run started at noon on April 22nd, 1889. An estimated 50,000 people were lined up at the start, seeking to gain a piece of the available 2 million acres.
Yeah.
Before sundown, at least 10,000 people had claimed stakes. How? What?
It's pretty crazy.
That's crazy. And did the indigenous people have an opportunity to stand in this line?
Oh no, of course not. It was all white people.
Oh my God, that is so fucked up.
There was a movie, I can't remember what it's called, but it was Tom Cruise and I think Nicole Kidman. And during the story, they participated in this. And so you can see kind of what it was like, I guess.
But it's Hollywoodified.
Was
there any?
Sure.
Did they show any of the violence in it?
Oh no! It's just the Land Run.
Oh, so they had already forcibly removed everybody there,
yes.
So there wasn't any conflict at the time.
No
violence.
It was
at the
just
time.
kind of a race.
That's so crazy.
People were like, I really want this piece of land.
Yeah,
and so they, at a certain time, everybody could go and run to the piece of land that they wanted.
Yeah, and basically as soon as they claimed the land, it was theirs.
That was it.
And thus became the Oklahoma Sooners. And I know you hate drunk history, but one of my
I don't hate drunk history. It's just not my thing.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Sometimes it's funny, but go ahead.
Well, one of my favorite episodes is the Oklahoma Sooner one. the story was told by Crystal Jean of the famous Black podcast, The Read. And just her telling of it. And in my mind, I'm looking back and seeing like people just running and like staking land and flags and like, this is mine. Like,
it's crazy.
It's crazy, but that really happened.
It really happened.
History.
And I just remembered.
What a trip.
I just remembered the name of the movie. It was Far and Away.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you told me about it because I'm never going to watch it because I hate Tom Cruise's guts. Thank you.
It's an old movie anyway.
Okay.
2 weeks later, new settlers had opened schools. So within 2 weeks. Wow. Within a month, Oklahoma City had 5 banks and 6 newspapers. Holy cow, they moved fast. On May 2nd, 1890, the Oklahoma Organic Act was passed, which established the Oklahoma Territory.
That is so interesting how they were able to implement all that infrastructure so fast.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're over here protesting, calling that 212 phone number and sending postcards and nothing is getting done. How did they do it? So at the same time, Black folks had been trying to find communities that they could settle without worries and fear of threats of violence from racism. And this is in the 1880s. So this is after Reconstruction had failed due to white violence. So This is Jim Crow time. And Edward P. McCabe was a Black politician and businessman, most notable for his promotion of Black settlement in Oklahoma and Kansas.
During the land rush, there was a growing belief within the Black community that this opening of free land was their opportunity to create communities of their very own. Many settled in exclusively Black towns.
Well, what's the option? They say we can't do this, we can't do that. Fine, we'll just create our own. But you're never going to believe what happens next. So between 1865 and 1920, approximately 50 all-Black towns were settled in Oklahoma. Although the number declined after the Great Depression, 13 of these original settlements are still incorporated in Oklahoma today.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
A distinct Black cowboy culture emerged after the Civil War as Black men in Indian Territory became everything from cowhands to bandits. Deputy U.S. Marshal Bass Reeves, one of the earliest African Americans to receive a commission as a Deputy U.S. Marshal west of the Mississippi River, worked for 32 years as a Deputy Marshal in the Indian Territory.
We got to give a hip-hop air horn to Bass Reeves. His name doesn't get mentioned enough in history, and he's such a cool figure.
Yeah, and there's a TV show about him.
That's right, but it's on Apple Plus, right?
No, it's on Paramount Plus.
Whoa! Also don't have that, but that's great. Oklahoma has a long history of violence and discrimination, and Black people in Oklahoma Territory faced the same problems that they faced elsewhere. And the racial situation was complicated by the promotion of Black colonization of the territory by Edward P. McCabe and others. Black people were run out of many areas, and white people segregated those who remained. It's also interesting that they had to remove everybody who was not white. The indigenous people had to go.
Yeah.
The Black people had to go.
Only white people allowed.
What kind of world are y'all imagining?
Yeah.
It sucks.
Fucked up.
No seasoning, no music. Ugh.
Pretty fucked up.
Lame style. Get me out of here.
Oklahoma became a state in 1907. The Oklahoma Constitution did not call for strict segregation out of fear that President Theodore Roosevelt would veto the document if they included such restrictions, but they wanted
sneaky.
To. Yeah.
They probably did some
They really wanted to.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, just wait.
But once Oklahoma became a state, segregation became the law. Interracial marriage and miscegenation, those are getting down, right? Dipping and doing with people of other races.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Were made felonies. What?
Yeah.
So, but by the way, white men could rape and sodomize people
do whatever they
with
wanted.
impunity. Yeah. So the legislature banned interracial schools at all levels. Public facilities were segregated, and 540 railroad depots in the state had to be altered to fit the separate waiting room requirements, and new coaches had to be added to the lines. Like, what?
So all this money they're spending to segregate things,
it's so
nuts.
Dumb.
Very
what a
dumb.
waste. Yeah.
Over time, legislators segregated everything from hospitals to housing to cemeteries to restaurants. In 1915, Oklahoma made national history by becoming the first state in the Union to segregate public pay telephone booths.
That's crazy. But we're just recording something else, and we're talking about, that we have to kind of look at the way things were at the time.
Right.
But I don't think morally or ethically segregating or discriminating is ever good unless there is like a real threat. Like, sure, we should definitely segregate violent murderers.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
We got to keep people in violent people in prisons. Okay.
But just regular people with just a different hue?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's a stretch for me. So the white people of Oklahoma turned to the state courts as well as using economic pressure and violence to preserve Oklahoma's Jim Crow system. Between 1907 and 1930, lynchings by white terrorist mobs took the lives of dozens of Black people. Any indictments?
Don't know, but probably not. Yeah. In Tulsa, most of the city's 10,000 African-American residents lived in the Greenwood district, a vibrant neighborhood that was home to 2 newspapers, several churches, a library branch, and scores of Black-owned businesses. At the time, it was one of the wealthiest Black communities in the United States and was colloquially known as Black Wall Street.
Yes. And it's relevant today because the Supreme Court of Oklahoma just made a decision that affected the survivors of this community.
And it sucked.
It sucks. You're not going to believe this either. Their decision was bad. So between May 31st and June 1st of 1921, in an event that is considered one of the worst incidents of racial violence in American history, mobs of white residents attacked Black residents and destroyed homes and businesses in the Greenwood district. The attackers burned and destroyed more than 35 square blocks of the neighborhood and looted and stole things that they recovered from the homes of the people that never returned. Yeah.
They destroyed the place. Yeah. So change came to Oklahoma beginning after World War II and into the 50s and 60s. 2 of the Supreme Court's most significant human rights rulings came from racial issues in Oklahoma. In 1948, the court ruled that the Black student Ada Lois Sipwell was entitled to a legal education in a state school.
In 1950, the court ruled that the University of Oklahoma violated the 14th Amendment when it segregated Black student George McLaurin on campus. In June of 2024, just a week ago, the Oklahoma Supreme Court dismissed the lawsuit of the last 2 remaining survivors of the Oklahoma Tulsa race massacre, which was a blow to those who had hope for racial justice to make amends for, what we've said is the single worst act of violence against Black people in the history of the United States.
Yeah, we told you it was bad. It was bad. And racism in Oklahoma has survived waves of reform. It's still visible in ongoing de facto public school segregation, wealth inequality, and the alarming rate of people of color that make up those incarcerated and killed by the Oklahoma City Police.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked into the stats, because the Oklahoma City Police, there was a police officer, a lady who shot somebody a few years ago. And so I was really into the stats at that time.
Right.
But they weren't good. And I don't have them for this episode, but just trust me. So now let's get into the early life of Wanda Jean Allen. So Wanda Jean Allen was born in 1959. She was the second of 8 children. Her mother, Mary, was a woman who had a problem with substances, particularly alcohol, and she drank during her pregnancies. And Wanda Jean Allen's father abandoned the family soon after the last child was born, leaving Mary to raise the children all alone.
The family lived in a housing project in Oklahoma City and got by on public assistance. Because Wanda Jean was the oldest daughter, much of the responsibility for taking care of her siblings fell to her.
Wanda Jean did her best to keep the family fed, although she worked a number of odd jobs as a young teenager. It wasn't enough, and she often resorted to stealing food and stealing money to survive. As a result, she did have to spend some time in juvenile detention.
At the age of 12, Wanda Jean was hit by a truck and knocked unconscious. And then at the age of 14, she was stabbed in the left temple. So when I was reading about this, I was like, left temple. What? I was thinking forehead, but it's not. It's like that soft spot.
Oh, yeah. You
next to your
you ever
eye.
get in a fight with somebody and, pressure points? That's a spot
yeah.
you can push.
Oh, good to know. Yeah.
To disable somebody to get them to leave you alone.
Good to know.
Imagine something piercing. I mean, that's a soft part of your skull.
Yeah.
You could get to the brain.
Yes, absolutely. So a psychologist who examined Wanda Jean when she was 15 said that her IQ was so low she was borderline mentally disabled.
Because Wanda Jean manifested symptoms of brain damage, it was recommended that she be sent for neurological testing. But this was never done, mostly, I'm sure, because of resources, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so Wanda Jean struggled in school, and when she was 17, she just dropped out. So now let's get into the timeline. Hit it, Beth.
In 1981, Wanda Jean Allen was sharing an apartment with her childhood friend, Deidre Pettis. The two had grown up together in the same neighborhood. In some articles, Deidre is described as just a friend, and in others, she is described as Allen's girlfriend.
It's the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And so
hard
our
to
attitudes, were different about queer people, especially queer women of color.
Yeah. And they may not have been open about it.
Yeah. So in any case, on June 29th, 1981, the two got into an argument and Allen shot and killed Deidre. According to Allen, she accidentally shot Deidre from about 30 feet away while returning fire from Deidre's boyfriend. Deidre had stepped in front of the gun, and that's when she got shot.
However, the forensic evidence did not align with Allen's story. In particular, a police expert believed that bruises and powder burns on Deidre's body indicated that Allen had pistol whipped her, then shot her at point-blank range.
And again, this was the 80s, so forensic science and forensic evidence has evolved. But nevertheless, prosecutors decided to offer Allen a plea bargain. She agreed to plead guilty to manslaughter in exchange for a 4-year prison sentence, and she ended up serving less than 2 years of that sentence.
That's nuts. That is such a short sentence for killing somebody.
It is a pretty short sentence, but again, this is also the 80s before that mid-90s hard on crime wave hit.
Yeah.
So, different time.
Yeah. There we go again.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment to tell you about my podcast, Carol Costello Presents Blind Rage. In 1984, a woman named Phyllis Cottle was abducted in broad daylight, tortured, and left to die in a burning car in Akron, Ohio. At the time, I was a rookie reporter covering this horrific story. Since then, I've reported every kind of crime imaginable. I've been able to leave most of them at work, but not this one, the one that buried itself under my skin and stayed put. Phyllis Cottle was a badass woman, and I want to tell you her story. A production of Evergreen Podcasts and signature title of the Killer Podcast Network, you can find Carol Costello Presents Blind Rage wherever you get your podcasts. Discover more great true crime and paranormal programming at killerpodcast.com.
I'm an American vigilante. I have a question for you. What would you do if someone you cared about was abducted, taken from you? Would you call me? Would you care about how I got them back? Download American Vigilante now.
While in prison, Allen met and befriended a woman named Gloria Jean Leathers, who was serving time for forgery and larceny. Like Allen, Gloria had a violent past. She had been arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, assault and battery, and firearms possession. She also told Allen that she had once stabbed a woman to death.
Now, I looked for this case, the stabbing. Couldn't find it.
No, it was never verified.
Okay. So after Allen's release from prison in 1982, she and Gloria lost touch. But after Gloria was released in 1986, the two rekindled their friendship and began dating. Soon, they moved in together.
The couple had a turbulent relationship. They fought frequently, sometimes resorting to physical violence. The police were called to their residence on multiple occasions, and Gloria moved out half a dozen times. But after each spat, the pair would reconcile and Gloria would return.
They loved hard and they fought hard.
Yeah,
sounds like.
Apparently.
Yeah, so 7 years after the death of Deidre Pettis on December 1st, 1988, the two women got into an argument at a local grocery store. That's Gloria and Wanda Jean.
Right.
And Gloria had just received a check for financial assistance from the government, aka welfare, and Allen was demanding that she turn it over to her.
The fight escalated to the point that someone called the police. Gloria asked the responding officer if he would escort her home so that she could pick up some of her belongings. She was tired of fighting with Allen and intended to move back in with her mother.
The officer escorted both women back to the house and remained there while Gloria packed her things and called her mother, Ruby Wilson, to come and get her.
Angry at the fact that Gloria was breaking up with her, Allen threatened her and told her that if she couldn't have her, no one could. At the suggestion of the police officer, Gloria decided to go to the police station to file a complaint against Allen.
When her mother arrived, Gloria told her that she wanted to go to the police station to file a formal complaint against Allen. Gloria and her mother drove to the village police department in Oklahoma City to file the complaint.
Neither of the women noticed that Allen had followed in her own car. Allen later claimed that she went to the police station to file her own report. When Gloria exited the car, Allen attempted to get Gloria to reconsider moving out. When Gloria refused, Allen shot her in the stomach.
2 police officers heard the gunshot and immediately rushed out of the station to see what was going on. They saw Allen still brandishing the gun, jump into her car, and drive away. Zoom! And found Gloria on the ground in a pool of blood.
Gloria was still conscious, however, and was able to tell police who had shot her. Her mother witnessed the entire event and told the officers what had happened.
Ooh.
Gloria was transported to the hospital.
Allen managed to elude police for 4 days before an anonymous caller told police she was staying at a home 70 miles away from Oklahoma City. Police arrested her in Duncan, Oklahoma on December 5th. Just 2 hours later, Gloria, 29, died of her wounds.
According to Lieutenant Paul Kinman, one of the 2 police officers from the village who transported Allen back to Oklahoma City after her capture in Duncan, quote, "She became a bit emotional when we told her Gloria Leathers had died," unquote.
But soon afterwards, Allen began to claim she shot Leathers in self-defense. Quote, she claimed she never meant to hurt Gloria, but that Gloria had struck her with a garden tool at home. And then when she followed her to City Hall, Gloria threatened her with it again, unquote.
No garden tool was found at the shooting scene. Near the women's home, police recovered a .38 caliber handgun they believed was used in the shooting.
All right, so now let's get into the trial. So the state charged, I couldn't wait. This story is really picking up. So the state charged Allen with first-degree murder and announced that it would seek the death penalty. Allen's family approached a lawyer known to them. Believing that this was not a capital case, he agreed to take it for a fee of $5,000. The family scraped together the initial payment of $800, a decision they would later regret.
The attorney was Bob Carpenter, a sole practitioner who had never tried a capital case. When prosecutors announced that they were seeking the death penalty, Carpenter was horrified. Realizing that he was way out of his league, Carpenter asked the judge to allow him to withdraw from the case on the grounds that he did not have the resources to represent a capital defendant.
He had learned that the family was unable to pay for an investigator or any other expert to aid in the defense, which happens. It's the state with unlimited resources, and then you, the regular defendant person, and that they could not pay him for the remaining $4,200 either. He offered to act as co-counsel for free if a public defender was appointed as lead counsel.
The prosecution opposed the lawyer's motion, which is shitty.
Oh.
And the court refused to allow him to withdraw.
Ooh.
He was therefore forced to defend Wanda Jean Allen on a total payment of $800 with no co-counsel, no investigator, and no resources to hire expert witnesses, which is just, it's terrible.
It's terrible. It's a
I don't
terrible
know how
decision.
they allowed this to happen.
I don't either. And, we'll talk about the
It's fucked
documentary, I'm sure, but those lawyers she eventually did get, ooh, gosh, my heart goes out to them. I love, there needs to be more men like them. They were so good. But she really did not get a good deal.
No.
So evidence that Gloria had a history of violent conduct was central to the defense argument at Allen's trial. Allen claimed that she feared Gloria because Gloria had boasted to her about stabbing a woman to death in Tulsa in 1979.
The defense sought to corroborate this claim with testimony from Gloria's mother, Ruby Wilson, whom Gloria had also allegedly told about the stabbing. However, the prosecution objected and the court prohibited the introduction of such testimony because it was considered hearsay, which I don't think is right.
I don't think so either.
It doesn't matter if the stabbing happened or not.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is that Gloria told them
yes,
that she had stabbed a woman to death. And so that's,
And that belief dictated Wanda Jean's actions or part
exactly. Of it. Or, that's the story anyway.
You know what? Vote for Beth for judge. Because, I mean, she could have decided this case with her eyes closed. I mean, I understand that there is a system and everybody says this is the best system it's not perfect, but it's the best we've got.
It's definitely not perfect. Yeah.
Definitely not perfect. And it just seems so wrong. And after that decision is made, it's like, what can you do? Well, judge, then I need more time or give me something. But they didn't give her anything after they took that away.
Yeah.
But, it is a murder case. So there's that too. So the prosecutors depicted Allen as a remorseless liar with virtually no objection from the defense. They introduced extensive testimony that Allen was the quote-unquote man in the relationship, that she went by the nickname Jean, the male spelling, and that she dominated Gloria. This is like super homophobia.
It is.
And if you wanted to make the jury in the 80s in Oklahoma not like a defendant, I mean,
this is the way
to do it. Yeah.
They also introduced as evidence a note that she had once written to Gloria, which read, quote, "I'm the type of person who will hunt someone down I love and kill them.
Oh, no.
Do I make myself clear, Gloria?" Unquote. So that's not good.
Oh, that's not good.
That was not good, Wanda Jean.
Wanda Jean. But there's reasons why Wanda Jean might have believed that was okay. And we'll get into that later. But in what was likely an attempt to portray herself as a well-educated, stable career woman, Allen testified at trial that she was a high school graduate, who had obtained a medical assistant certificate from a local state college, none of which was true. Oh, my credibility bus is going off the cliff.
Defense attorney Bob Carpenter, with no resources to hire any investigators to look into Allen's background in detail, didn't know that she was lying about her educational background.
I feel like he could have searched.
I mean, that's one thing that he could have looked at.
I mean, for $800, I mean, you could at least
look at that.
Made a call. Yeah. So Allen claimed that she acted in self-defense. She said that Gloria had gotten out of her mother's car brandishing a rake and had charged at her with it. This defense was weakened by the fact that no rake was found at the scene. And Gloria's mother, Ruby Wilson, disputed Wanda Jean's account. Ruby testified. Now, remember, Ruby was there. She saw the whole thing.
Yeah.
And she testified that Allen shot her daughter at point-blank range after Gloria rejected Allen's pleas to return home.
Allen testified that after the dispute at the supermarket, Gloria, accompanied by her mother and police officers, returned to the house and gathered some of her possessions. Allen asked Gloria to stay and attempt to work out their difficulties.
When Allen followed Gloria to her car, Gloria grabbed a small, handheld, multiple-pronged gardening tool, identified at trial as a garden rake, and struck Allen in the face with it, causing extensive bleeding beneath Allen's eye. Allen retreated into the house to minister to her wounds. Gloria got in the car and left.
Now, remember, this is all Allen's story.
All right. Thank you.
Right. Allen testified she cleaned the blood off of her face with a small towel, then drove to the police station where she knew Gloria was going. Despite the time involved in going into the house at the same time Gloria left and wiping her face, She told the jury she followed approximately 2 car lengths behind Gloria.
The vehicle in which Gloria was riding was parked in a drive area of the police department off of the street. Allen parked in the street behind Gloria's vehicle. Allen got out of her car and reached the rear of Gloria's vehicle when she noticed Gloria approaching her, holding the garden rake.
At that point, Allen said she retreated back to her vehicle, opened the passenger door, and retrieved a pistol she kept in the glove compartment. She turned around to see Gloria very near her and accidentally shot Gloria during the ensuing scuffle. Whoops.
So prosecutors, noting that Allen had cried throughout the trial, suggested to the jury that her crying was insincere and a further sign that she was lying.
How is that allowed? How is that allowed?
Again, yeah, they already believe, they have these homophobic ideas that she's evil, can't be trusted.
She's a man.
Yeah, and lying about who she is and not living a good Christian life, whatever bullshit.
All that stuff.
And the prosecutors are just making it worse. Yeah. And I can't believe her counsel did not object.
Yes, I can't believe that they allowed that to happen.
Yeah, it's insane.
The jury did not deliberate for long before finding Allen guilty of first-degree murder. During the punishment phase, the prosecutors argued that Allen should be sentenced to death because she had been previously convicted of a felony involving the use or threat of violence, that she was a continuing threat to society, and she committed the murder to avoid arrest or prosecution.
Carpenter did not introduce any evidence about Allen's low IQ, her prenatal exposure to alcohol, the pair of severe head injuries she suffered as a child. Psychologists later surmised that these may have compromised her ability to control violent impulses, or her deprived and troubled youth.
Once again, jurors took only a short time to reach their decision, and on April 27, 1989, Wanda Jean Allen was sentenced to death.
In a 1991 affidavit, Bob Carpenter stated that it was only after the trial that he learned about Allen's low IQ. Oh, no. He shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
In 1995, a psychologist conducted a comprehensive evaluation of Allen and found clear and convincing evidence of cognitive and sensory motor deficits and brain dysfunction possibly linked to an adolescent head injury. So now, let's get into where are they now? Tell us, Beth.
All right. Well, Deidre Pettis was buried at Trice Hill Cemetery in Oklahoma City. Gloria Jean Leathers was buried at Green Acres Memorial Gardens Cemetery in Tulsa County, Oklahoma.
Allen spent 12 years on death row at Mabel Bassett Correctional Center, Oklahoma's only maximum security prison for women. And while in prison, she claimed to have become a born-again Christian and was no longer a lesbian.
As her appeals began winding down and she was left with fewer and fewer options, she began reaching out for help, and denying her sexuality was a prerequisite for some to side with her.
She asked for an audience with Theodis Payne, the host of a popular Oklahoma City talk radio program, and one of the only handful of Black folks in Oklahoma capable of spearheading the sort of public relations campaign that stood any chance of swaying the conservative Oklahoma governor, Frank Keating.
Payne was intrigued by Allen's case, but before agreeing to muster his troops behind her, he needed to ensure that he and Allen were on the same page when it came to one important matter.
According to Payne, when he asked about her sexuality, she said, quote, "I used to be a lesbian. I had interest in women, but I promise you, I've been converted as a Christian. And in my Christian faith, that is a sin. I am born again. That's the old me, not the new me," unquote.
And Payne replied, quote, "That's critical, Wanda, because when I go to start talking to these Black preachers, they have real issues with homosexuality," unquote. And this is just, it sickens me.
A quick culture corner there, 10 years ago, there was a belief out there that Black people are liberal to a point, that older Black people were quite conservative, actually.
Yeah.
If they, weren't voting, if existential threats to their existence weren't on the line every ballot.
If they were white.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
If they were white.
Exactly.
Yeah, they'd be voting conservative.
Yes. So 10 years ago, that may have been an attitude, but I do believe that amongst Black, older, more conservative Black folks, that attitude is changing.
Yeah.
That the belief is more like, yours and mine and allies of the LGBTQ community that, God and hate don't even go in the same sentence. So
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
don't.
Yeah. And the Reverend Robin Myers, who served as a spiritual advisor to Allen, said, quote, I always suspected that Wanda's renunciation of lesbianism had more to do with helping to revamp herself in the most palatable way for her clemency and appeal process. She knew perfectly well that her being a lesbian was a big strike against her and that it's an embarrassment in the Black community. She was going to play the best hand that she could play at the very end, unquote.
Which, makes sense.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, her life is on the line, and
Exactly.
we all would do whatever it took,
Yeah.
I would think.
A fellow inmate, Pat Jones, who had spent 7 years on death row with Allen, said she once asked her friend a question. Quote, I said, Wanda, we all know what it says in the Bible about men being with men, so it's a sin for women to be with women. How do you think God's going to look at that? And she said, well, God made me, and the way that I am had to be the way that he made me, unquote.
That is t-shirt worthy or bumper sticker worthy, right? I mean, if the Christian's argument is the Bible says this, but it also says that I was created in his image, so then there can't be anything wrong for me, and there has to be an infinite way for human beings to exist if God is infinite.
Right.
That's my thought, but whatever.
This December, Christmas gets creepy with the Empty Coffin Podcast. This is host Greg Hansberry, and we are unwrapping the dark side of the holidays. This month, we revisit the haunting tragedy of a rock legend's final performance.
The band was on. They had just started their opening song. The killer walks across the stage, gun drawn.
We revive the forgotten tradition of telling ghost stories for Christmas.
There's this miserable, sour old man who spends all the time on his own in the graveyard, and the goblins take him.
And we sink our teeth into Nosferatu lore.
This story cropped up that the actor who played Nosferatu was so convincing that he was an actual vampire.
The Empty Coffin Podcast is part of the Evergreen Network. Subscribe on your favorite app and have yourself a scary little Christmas.
At Allen's clemency hearing, evidence was presented showing her to have an IQ of only 69, which would qualify as mentally disabled. Allen testified that she was a changed woman since she became a Christian and, quote, knows the love of Jesus Christ, unquote.
But the prosecution used Allen's trial testimony that she was a high school graduate who had a medical assistant certificate as evidence that she was not mentally disabled or deficient, despite the fact that it wasn't true.
Come on! She really wanted, she can't win.
No.
Nothing seems to be going as it should, even in these proceedings that came after something really awful.
Yeah.
So on December 15th, 2000, Allen was denied clemency in a hearing before the State Pardon and Parole Board. This caused mass anti-death penalty demonstrations. Protesters, including the Reverend Jesse Jackson, called for a reprieve for Allen because of her mental disability and her poor representation at trial.
Citing a quote-unquote stunning combination of concerns about bias and injustice, the ACLU urged clemency for Wanda Jean Allen. In a letter sent to Oklahoma's Pardon and Parole Board, the ACLU said, quote, Oklahoma's health system failed when Wanda Jean Allen's serious mental problems went untreated. The state's criminal justice system failed when she was forced to receive inadequate representation, and when bias based on race, class, and sexual orientation entered the courtroom, unquote.
ACLU is really onto something there.
Yeah.
Gloria Leathers' family also did not want Allen to be executed. They just wanted her out of the general public so she couldn't hurt anyone else. And I'm so glad, restorative justice, we ask what the victims and the survivors want. And that should have played a part too.
It definitely should have, for sure. Yeah. Allen's execution was scheduled for January 11th, 2001. On January 10th, a federal judge denied Allen's request for a stay of execution and for a new clemency hearing. The following day, Governor Frank Keating, known for being an ardent supporter of the death penalty, rejected her request for a stay of execution.
Her execution went forward as scheduled on the evening of January 11th, 2001. Allen was too upset to eat. Her last meal consisted of a bag of potato chips.
Allen was executed by lethal injection at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester. 24 relatives of victims Gloria Leathers and Deidre Pettis traveled to McAlester for the execution.
Many of them watched the execution from behind a tinted window. When asked if she wanted to make a final statement, she simply said, quote, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do," unquote. She then looked over at her lawyer, jokingly stuck out her tongue at him, and died. She was pronounced dead at 9:21 p.m. She was 41 years old.
Allen was the first Black woman to be executed in the United States since 1954, and the first woman executed in Oklahoma since 1903. She was the sixth woman to be executed in the United States after the death penalty was reinstated in 1976.
None of those are good records to be proud of.
No.
So her final appeals in the last 3 months of her life were chronicled by filmmaker Liz Garbus in a 2002 documentary titled The Execution of Wanda Jean, and I highly recommend y'all check it out. So now we're going to get into our takes. What are your thoughts, Beth?
Well, I know she did some terrible things. She killed 2 women, but she was failed by so many people in so many different ways. First as a child and then later as an adult. Racism, sexism, poverty, and homophobia all played a role in the outcome of her case. And she so clearly did not get a fair trial.
Yeah.
This case was really frustrating.
Yeah, it is. That's a good way to put it. Frustrating. Again, there are these systems in place, and we know they're flawed, but these flaws are so stark.
Big, yeah.
I almost don't, they're not, a mistake seems small. This is somebody's life hanging in the balance, and there were so many failures along the way. You're right. I couldn't agree more. The Bible Belt of it all.
Yeah.
And I was working on this script. And one of my kids was looking over my shoulder. They always look to see if I type bad words. That's what I typed. What did I call it? What did I call that president? Buttface Jackson.
Buttface.
Yeah,
Jackson.
just to see if they're paying attention. So, looking over my shoulder, and my kid goes, "This Allen person sounds like they did some bad stuff." And I said, "Yes, and hurt people hurt other people, and it's not an excuse, but it can be an explanation." And I think the harm that Allen did to others, resulting in their deaths and eventually in her own, lethal injection by way of execution, there were many harms done to Allen before we even got there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, where is Stefan from SNL? Because this case has everything. From top to bottom, front to back. All I see are victims. Everybody in this case is a victim. Even thinking about the trauma within Wanda's family of origin,
right,
which is generational.
Yeah.
And, she was injured so horribly. And I did look for that case where Gloria killed somebody. I couldn't find somebody. But if Wanda was like, I'm with this lady who is bragging about killing somebody, that I can understand why she might have justified violence being in that intimate partner relationship.
Right. It's hard to say exactly. I think that the defense that she put forward was a lie.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I do think that Gloria Jean told that story about stabbing somebody to death, because both the mother and Wanda Jean were told that story.
Yeah, we're told that story. Yeah. You wouldn't just tell your mom, I'd stabbed somebody today. I mean, wouldn't your mom rather hear about your spelling test or something else?
But it's hard to say why she told that story or if it was true.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Like you said, we couldn't find evidence that it was true.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not true. We just don't know.
We just don't know. You're right. Victims all around, not just Gloria in terms of her getting killed, Gloria Jean, but she was also a victim of the system. You know what I mean?
Right.
She was incarcerated, and she was also a, woman of color and a queer woman, and also, was not financially in a great position. I mean, she was getting a check for government assistance. You know what I mean?
Right.
So all these people, I think in some ways, were failed. I gotta believe that her mentality, secondary to more than one head injury, played a huge role in the case, and also in her relationships.
Right.
And her lack of, she couldn't resolve a conflict in a healthy way.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sake, she was actually going. I mean, I was under the impression because I didn't think that, oh, she's making this up. When I watched the documentary, I was under the impression she was going to the police station to get them to help her.
Right.
And maybe in her mind, that was a thing.
I don't know. Yeah.
But I did believe her in the documentary when she said, my body was there, but my mind was not. Not an excuse, but just an explanation.
Yeah. I just don't know what happened. But the fact that she had so many issues.
Yeah.
That I just don't think it's fair what happened to her.
I agree. I don't think it's fair what happened to anybody in the story, if I'm being honest. I mean, even back to Wanda Jean's mom being subjected to just a really hard life that she clearly wanted to escape. That's a lot. That's a lot
and
for one.
The father left and
poverty. All those things are. And so, we remember that true crime is true for somebody, but I think there are a lot of victims in this case. And so just love and light to all of them. And all the people who loved Deidre, Gloria Jean, and even Wanda Jean. So, Fruities, let us know what you think. Now we are going to move to the How Not to Get Murdered section of our show. If you love true crime and you don't want to die, here's a tip for you.
This segment is not intended to be victim blaming. We thought of this segment because I read somewhere that a lot of people listen to true crime because they want to know what they can do to be safer. This is not meant to blame the victims. It's just learning from other people's experiences.
So on our break, I've been spending a lot of time on Reddit and listening to podcasts about all the crazy stories on Reddit too. So I got this tip from Reddit. It's, it's summertime now and we're going out, we're meeting people, we're hooking up, dipping and doing all the things. But we gotta be safe. And if you're going on a date with a new person, don't go to their house or any private space.
Oh, yeah.
And don't accept a surprise. Like, surprise, I'm taking you to a private island frequented by billionaires. Or, surprise, I'm taking you to my bespoke escape room in my basement, aka a non-public place. I know this is hard, y'all. And when I was in my hoe days, I don't know if I could have done this, but times are different now, y'all. And we love you. We want you to be safe. So don't bring random hookups to your house. I know it's hard, but it's safer not to do it.
Yeah.
And also, if a date is pressuring you to go somewhere or do something that you don't want to do, pressuring you or shaming you, red flag, get the fuck out of there. And if you're in a relationship and you are experiencing intimate partner violence, couple resources for help available 24/7. The hotline, it's 800-799-7233. Or there's the RAIN network. And also you can call or text 988 just to name a few. So don't suffer in silence. Do you have anything to add?
No.
Okay, shout out time.
All right.
Where we shout out any content by or about any BIPOC folks or LGBTQ folks or any true crime goodies. Well, here we go. Dame la frutita. Ooh, ooh. Dame la frutita. Ooh, ooh. Dame la frutita. Ooh, ooh. This shout out comes from our fruity Lindsay in Canada who just had a baby frutita and we were so happy about the news. But before I get to Lindsay in Canada's thing, just a reminder that execution of Wanda Jean on YouTube is very good, I thought.
Yeah.
For what it was at the time and very helpful to understanding this case. My shout out is from Lindsay, Eric, on Netflix. And it's so good. It is about a troubled artist. He's a puppeteer like Jim Henson Muppet guy.
Okay.
He's a dad. And he has a lot of struggling artist kind of problems, drinking, drugs, stuff like that.
Right.
Loses his kid and he ends up creating this Muppet character to help find his missing son and reconnect with his son and also heal himself. And it's just really, really, really beautiful. Really great.
Check it out.
What do you got?
I wanted to shout out The Big Cigar on Apple Plus.
Oh.
It's a biographical drama thriller miniseries about the Black Panther Party founder Huey P. Newton escaping from the FBI to Cuba.
Ooh. Apple Plus is really...
They're knocking them out of the park.
Apple, if you don't knock it off, you're going to make me get a subscription. There, you keep announcing Apple Plus things and friend. Okay.
Yeah, it's worth it right now.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot on there to watch.
Okay.
Yeah. I also wanted to shout out The Acolyte on Disney Plus, which is a Star Wars show.
Oh.
It's a new one. And the main character is a Black woman.
Yes. I'm already watching it. I'm not even... What script? Can somebody stop this recording? I'm watching The Acolyte. So just to recap, those shout outs are The Execution of Wanda Jean on YouTube. From Lindsay in Canada, we got the show Eric. It's just Eric on Netflix. And The Big Cigar on Apple Plus. Oh man, I want to check that out so bad. And The Acolyte on Disney Plus. Oh no, it's the end.
Yep,
that's okay though. We're back from break and we'll be back again next week. So Beth, where can the people find us?
Our website is fruitloopspod.com, and we use Fruit Loops Pod for all of our social media. The footnotes for each episode can be found on our website. Plus, check it out for the different ways that you can support the show. Also, join us on Patreon, where we have literally hundreds of hours of bonus content. You can also support us by supporting our sponsors or by giving us a 5-star review.
5 stars only, please.
Also, don't forget to subscribe.
That's right. Now, listen close. This is a weekly podcast and new episodes drop every Thursday. So until next time, look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there. Wendy. Anyway, I gotta blow this up. I can't see shit. I'm sorry. I was trying to be all like efficient. I don't need to blow up my screen. I'm not 40 years old. Okay.
Paramount Plus.
Whoa! Also don't have that, but that's great.
My brain just glitched again.
It
does that sometimes.
What do you call this kind of relationship?
Teamwork.
You know where the bird is on the hippo's shoulders and the bird eats the ticks off of the hippo. It's like symbiotic.
Symbiotic, yes.
Yes.
Symbiotic.
But I don't know if that's appropriate. I failed science class. Anyway,
sounds good to me.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so then where do we go?
Wanda Jean.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do a hip hop ear horn if I can find it. Oh my god! Oh, I didn't put it live. Whoops.
Oh shit.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna do it again. Yes.
Deputy U.S.
in 1925, 1995.
20.
Yeah.
You all right over there?
Yes, clearing out my throat. Let me clear my throat. Okay. How does that song go again? I'm being a regular person today, and I didn't suck at it. Yay. Wait, it's your turn.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Do you remember in the 90s when during TV program before they would go to commercial break, somebody would come on and sing, "After these messages, we'll be right back."
Yeah. I do.
I
kind of miss that kind of stuff.
Me too. I miss a good jingle. You know, I love TV theme songs. And gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. Oh, it takes me right there.
Yeah.
Back to second grade. Oh,
yeah.
That's all.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Stopping the recording. Going to bed now. Love you.
All right.
Night.
Love
Bye,
you
Minnie.
Bye.
Something is creeping in. Don't follow it down.
Let me introduce you to Barry Clue, an authorised financial advisor from New Zealand and a very special kind of stain on humanity.
He was a very knowledgeable young guy.
He was a registered financial advisor.
Type of guy that was bending over backwards to help you.
Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that Barry sounds like a great guy, and you'd be right. Well, right up until the point when you're wrong.
It was all fictitious.
She stole from my son, who has a disability.
Chris never knew. He died believing that we're all taken care of.
A psychopath is somebody who lacks empathy, acts impulsively. I think there's a strong case that Barry might be all of those things, actually.
To find out how Barry Clue stole over $15 million from 81 victims, subscribe to Clueless, The Long Con. That's Clueless, spelt Klooghless.
Hello, this is Gary Chahot welcoming you to check out the French History Podcast. Our main show covers the history of France from the first humans until present. If you liked Mike Duncan's The History of Rome and wanted a similar program covering the land of beauty, culture, and love, we are exactly that. We also host world-renowned scholars who have delivered guest episodes on their specialties, including 18th century pirates, revolutionary booksellers in 20th century Paris, the special friendship between the Marquis de Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson, and numerous others. Learn what you love and listen to the French History Podcast today.